Hello, I'm Cyril Deaconoff, Artistic Director of Voices of Silicon Valley. When I first heard choral piece Sympathy, composed by a creative team from Santa Clara University, I thought, this is a perfect fit for our mission to combine singing and technology. The piece asks singers and audience members to use their cell phones to play pre-recorded samples that create a beautiful ambience and also remind us of a bird song. The music responds to the text in a beautiful way. When at the end, singers place their cell phones into a glass jar, the lyrics say, "I know why a caged bird sings when he beats his bars and it would be free."
Hi, I'm Michael Orlinsky. I'm a singer, composer, and teacher in the Bay Area outside of San Francisco. I'm very happy for Voices of Silicon Valley to be singing my piece Au Tendre Nostalgie from my Requiem. A program like Voices of Silicon Valley is very important to people like me as a young composer and a lesser-known composer. Voices of Silicon Valley puts forward repertoire that's lesser performed, that's new. The composers are often very contemporary and close to the choir as well.
One of our experiments in recent years has been working with OMAX. The software takes live sound from singers and creates something totally different. And it also creates interesting graphics. Every musical phrase is represented visually by a wave, and then when OMAX begins to improvise, it shows us which musical phrase it's currently working on by a little triangle. We never know what kind of sound and what kind of wave it's going to create, which makes it exciting. This is another take on our mission to combine singing and technology.
Welcome everyone to Voices of Silicon Valley's Gala and album launch party. This is a very special occasion for us. Orpheus classical label based in Madrid, Paris, and New York is releasing our digital album, including a masterpiece of avant-garde music, Stimmung, by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Also on the album are several choral and instrumental works by our artistic director, Cyril Deaconoff. I'm your host, Lee Stewart. This album has already appeared on multiple digital platforms, iTunes, Amazon, and Spotify. Today, we want to talk about this exciting work, Stimmung, with a distinguished composer and multimedia artist, Pamela Z, as well as discuss other Voices of Silicon Valley projects important to our community. And we'll be raising a glass together a little later to host and toast the event. Voices of Silicon Valley is a vocal group that on one hand focuses on avant-garde music, and on the other is involved in projects that emphasize important social justice themes of our time. In particular, we'll be discussing today the Ghost Ship Memorial Concert and Sugihara Project. If you have questions for us, feel free to ask them in the live chat. We'll pass them on to our guests. Part of the event today is a fundraising effort to help us make all of these projects possible. One of our soloists, LEANDRA RAMM, will tell us about this effort. Welcome, LEANDRA.
Hello, Lee. We are raising money for two Voices of Silicon Valley projects, Ghost Ship Memorial Concert and Sugihara Project. We will be talking today with Edwin Birnbaum, president of Vital Arts, about the Ghost Ship Memorial Concert that Voices of Silicon Valley started last year and will do again this year. And Diane Birnbaum will discuss the story of Sugihara, a Japanese diplomat who saved thousands of Jewish immigrants during World War II. And that is another Voices of Silicon Valley project. We're so delighted that you joined us today, and I'm very happy to be here. And we wanted to tell you that if you would like to support the work of Voices of Silicon Valley, please text support VOSV to 77948. So again, that's support VOSV to, you type in 77948. Or you can go to our website, voices-sv.org, where you will see a link to our Fractured Atlas page and can make a tax-deductible donation there. Now, let's take a look at our thermometer.
Thank you, LEANDRA. Today, we've prepared a special new video production, Searching for a Perfect Harmony, featuring interviews with our artistic director and Stimmung singers describing their experience working on Stockhausen's masterpiece and Cyril Deaconoff's choral pieces. Let's watch.
You've all heard an expression, to be in tune with somebody. Simply, that's what Stimmung is about. 6 singers on a stage coming into perfect tuning with each other. Not just in terms of musical pitch, but also harmony, philosophy, and also mentally. Sometimes they move away from that perfect harmony and come back to it. The composer splits the section into the whole piece into 51 sections, which he calls models. In each one of these models, one singer is the lead singer. Stockhausen calls that person a model singer. That person leads and others follow. They sing a melody of vowels that help create overtones. They accomplish initial harmony, move away from it, disturb that perfect tuning and come back. And after that, they move on to the next section where another singer will be a model singer, and the whole exercise is repeated again. So you constantly hear these overtones, these very high pitches that come from a low fundamental tone that are almost constantly present. When you hear random words that actually mean something, they're very important. The composer calls them magic words. They represent different religions and philosophies of the world. You hear words like Isis, Egyptian goddess, or Rhea, Greek goddess, mother of Zeus, or Vishnu, Indian god. So as Stockhausen is searching for that perfect harmony, perfect tuning, he also reaches out to all the very many different religions of the world, bringing them together in harmony as well.
Learning Stimmung was a really fun experience as a singer. The symbols and numbers throughout the score challenged me to go deeper as a vocalist than any other score I'd performed up to that time, to not only sing the correct fundamental, but also the right note in the overtone series as well at the same time. This music had a much deeper relationship with the principles of pure sound than the vast majority of music out there.
On one hand, it was extraordinarily simple in the sense that we were just singing a B flat overtone chord for 70 minutes and just interacting with 5 other singers. And on the other hand, it was just extraordinarily complex in that we were dealing with Stockhausen's completely different scheme of conveying music and this wide range of phonetic expressions and overtones that was a very new experience for me and very intimidating, to be honest. So the first time around, I was very caught up in making sure that I understood the format, the models, the interplay, the vowels, and everything kind of structural like that. The second time, I was able to focus a little bit more on the sounds that I think Stockhausen wanted us to focus on, the simplicity, the tuning, the overtones. It was a phenomenal experience to be able to resurrect a piece that hadn't been performed in the Bay Area in 30 or 40 years, just a real privilege, and I just had a blast doing it.
It sort of locks you back into just the rhythms of life and the rhythms of nature. However, it's not just all free form, right? It's not just making sounds. They are very, very specific sounds that Stockhausen wants you to make with a lot of freedom in there. And I noticed that the times I perform that, each time increasingly, I'm really in this state of flow, much more than just performing a musical composition. Because there's that balance of challenge plus sort of the meditation of really doing something enjoyable. And it just really locks me into just such a wonderful state. The piece, again, I call it a musical ritual because the way that the magic names are put into play there, it's like you just get to invoke such ancient names, and with everyone kind of in that flow state, it really creates something psycho-spiritual in a way. Finding the correct formant in your mouth for the vowel shapes was probably the greatest challenge of that piece as well, keeping it in tune. You know, you can have an E vowel, right? What's E? Is it E? Right? You can delineate the different overtones on each vowel, and that is what Stockhausen was very specific about.
Our Time is this piece that's this fragile interplay between this electronic track with glass breaking and kind of this choral contribution that seems fragile and kind of fraught and a bit frenetic to kind of hold on to. And it's really interesting to have a piece like that that's so fragile put together, but everyone kind of contributes to it, and you make it to the end, and it's just incredibly beautiful to listen to. The other piece was Kontakion, which was Cyril's Easter piece, which starts off just very slow, kind of moody as you think about Jesus in the grave, and then comes into this percussive drum beat that the choir then mimics and models along, and shows really the power of resurrection in a way that isn't usually portrayed in Easter pieces. So both pieces super fun to sing, very interesting and thought-provoking, and I had a blast.
I love performing new music, and it's especially a treat to sing in the same group as the composer. I had the pleasure to sing in the debut performances of both Kontakion and Our Time, getting the chance to learn and develop the pieces under Cyril's conducting. Being able to be part of bringing new and experimental pieces to life is very satisfying for me as a singer.
Some of the fun challenges with these pieces was being right in line with the recording. I've done a few works that have an electronic recording with them, and it's always a different process, but always the main challenge is keeping the tempo. And it's really this interesting learning curve where you realize how much your own human tempo varies from that of a machine. And it's a collective experience, right? A group of humans versus machine can sort of awaken you to like how to keep that regularity. And yeah, performing the Our Time was I loved the concept of that piece with that sound of like the glass shattering. It was like we're shattering the glass ceiling, and I think that piece has a lot of relevance, especially now this year, 2020. So thank you for listening.
Before we discuss Stockhausen's masterpiece with Pamela Z, we wanted to talk more about Cyril's choral works featured on the Orpheus album. Cyril, tell us about Our Time, Kontakion, how these came about, and what you did want to express through them.
Hi, Lee. Hello, everyone. I'm Cyril Deaconoff, Artistic Director of Voices of Silicon Valley. So Our Time is a piece where I wanted to express how fragile our world is and how vulnerable our lives are. So that's why you hear the big sound of breaking glass in the beginning of the piece. And at the same time, as we live in this fragile world, we're trying our best to have joy, joy from singing together, joy from making music together. And so there are moments in Our Time that are just pure joy. There are moments that are kind of meditative. So it's kind of in a nutshell, it's our life today, challenges of our life. And then now Kontakion is completely different. I wrote that piece a few years before Our Time. And it comes from the Eastern Orthodox tradition. It's a very religious piece. Kontakion is an Orthodox hymn for Easter. Kontakion for Pascha, Easter. However, so I'm using the text, the Easter text that comes from Eastern Orthodox tradition. But the way I'm doing that, of course, it's nothing like, what you hear in church music. It begins, so it has two major parts. The first one is about, the New Testament story of death of Jesus on the cross. And there you hear melodies that can remind you of Orthodox chant, remind you, I'm not quoting any particular chants. And then now the second part is much more sort of obviously festive and joyful, because the second part of the piece is about resurrection. And I'm using kind of dancey rhythms and percussion. So that's obviously my take on this Eastern Orthodox text. I think that, I visited Palestine, and I visited Palestine and Israel. And so the Palestinian Israeli culture, Arab culture, I think had an effect on me, which is why you might find this text is treated in somewhat unusual way. So that's about those two pieces.
That's super interesting. And I know that you also want to talk a little bit about the string quartet and the use of the traditional spiritual. Were you there? One of my very favorites. Super interesting. How did that happen?
Yes, so the string quartet, that was interesting time in my life. I had just moved to San Francisco Bay Area from the Midwest, where I went to school. And so at that time I was exploring, I began to explore avant-garde music and different avant-garde techniques, but my mind was also, when I was in the Midwest, I was a church musician. And so some of the traditional American hymns, like the spiritual, Were You There, were still very much in my mind. And I thought, it would be interesting, as I really wanted to write a string quartet, I thought it would be interesting to take this traditional spiritual and treat it a little bit in the avant-garde way, but still make sure that the melody is fairly clear and recognizable, which I think you'll find that it is. So that's what was in my mind. It turned out to be a very personal piece, Were You There, from the string quartet. And I think it meant a lot to many people, which I truly appreciated.
Yeah, we need that time to think, to meditate, to just focus on quiet, and that's really important. And we're so lucky tonight, folks, that we get to hear this beautiful piece. It's already available on several digital platforms, including iTunes, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Let's listen to it. Now, we would like to talk about Voices of Silicon Valley's Sugihara Project and bring in Diane Birnbaum, a member of the Bay Area Jewish community, to talk about the project with Cyril. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you, Lee. It's an honor to be here and to be able to tell you a little bit more about Juni Sugihara. He was a Japanese diplomat. He was born in 1900 and he died 86 years later. Mr. Sugihara is best known for the period of his life when he served as the Japanese vice consul in Kaunas, Lithuania, during the Second World War. At great risk to himself and his family, he issued transit visas to about 6,000 Jews, some of whom were fleeing German-occupied Western Poland, others from Soviet-occupied Eastern Poland, and some who were Lithuanian residents. And during about a 6-week period in the summer of 1940, Mr. Sugihara ignored orders from Tokyo and issued 10-day visas for transit through Japan, also arranging with Soviet officials that these refugees could travel through the Soviet Union on the Trans-Siberia Railroad. Sugihara wrote the visas by hand, often working 18 to 20-hour days. And some witnesses said that he was still writing visas as he boarded the train to leave, throwing visas into the crowd of desperate refugees. And as the train pulled away from the station, he said, "Please forgive me, I cannot write anymore. I wish you the best." In 1985, Sugihara was honored by the State of Israel as one of their Hasidei Umot HaOlam, meaning the righteous among the nations, the only man from Japan ever so honored. And 15 years later, Lithuania proclaimed the year 2000 the year of Juni Sugihara. It's estimated that from those 6,000 people to whom Sugihara gave visas, there are now as many as 100,000 descendants. Two of them, Rabbi Samuel Groudens, who died in 2006, and his daughter Debbie, have been members of the synagogue in Berkeley, where my husband and I are members. So his story may put a face on Sugihara's legacy. Samuel Groudens was born in Cologne, Germany, and he grew up in orphanages because his parents were too poor to support their children. From an early age, he showed a gift for study, and he was ordained a rabbi in Poland at the age of 21. But the year was 1937, and the newly ordained Rabbi Groudens first returned to Germany, but then quickly escaped to Lithuania, while the rest of his family perished in the Holocaust. In Lithuania, Groudens' life was saved when Sugihara issued him a transit visa. So Rabbi Groudens made his way on the Trans-Siberia Railroad to Vladivostok and then down to Shanghai, where he rode out the war years. When he finally made it to California, he had a long career as the rabbi in Modesto before finally moving to Berkeley in retirement. Because so many Jews, Lee, spent the war years in the relative safety of Shanghai, and many of these came to the San Francisco Bay Area after the war, there are many people in the Bay Area today who are descendants of those who were saved by Sugihara. In 1985, Sugihara was asked his reason for issuing visas to the Jews. He explained that the refugees were human beings who simply needed help. And he went on to add, "You want to know about my motivation, don't you? It's the kind of sentiments anybody would have when he actually sees refugees face to face, begging with tears in their eyes. He just cannot help but sympathize with them. Among the refugees were elderly and women. They were so desperate that they went so far as to kiss my shoes. Yes, I actually witnessed such scenes with my own eyes. Also, I felt at that time that the Japanese government did not have any uniform opinion in Tokyo. I felt silly to deal with them. So I made up my mind not to wait for their reply. I knew that somebody would surely complain about me in the future, but I myself thought this would be the right thing to do. There is nothing wrong in saving many people's lives. The spirit of humanity, philanthropy, neighborly friendship. With this spirit, I ventured to do what I did, confronting this most difficult situation. And because of this reason, I went ahead with redoubled courage. What an amazing, wonderful man.
Fantastic story, just stunning, the entire thing, Diane. Thank you so much. And Cyril, I know you want to jump in here and talk about this project and your work with this.
Yes, so the Sugihara Project for us, for Voices of Silicon Valley, this is such a powerful human story, how one man risked his life to save thousands of others. So now we've looked at what happened in Lithuania, how Chune Sugihara issued these visas at personal risk to thousands of Jewish refugees. We'd like to tell the rest of the story. We'd like to look at perhaps one family and see how they traveled through Russia into Japan, China, and eventually to Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and see how what Sugihara did affected their lives. So that's our goal for this project.
It's fantastic, and I believe we now can see that recording.
Nima right, because it is right.
Do what is right and leave it alone. Leave it
Voices of Silicon Valley would like to expand this project and produce more choral pieces that feature the journey of Jewish refugees from Lithuania through Russia to Japan, China, and the United States. Would you please make this project happen by making a donation? Lee, we still need help to reach our goal of $4,000. Please text support VOSV to 77948. Again, that's support VOSV to 77948. Or you can go to our website, voices-sv.org, where you will see a link to our Fractured Atlas page and can make a tax-deductible donation there.
Leandra, let's bring in the thermometer. Take a look, everybody. And we definitely still need your help. Now we will hear a live performance, one of Silicon Valley's soloists, whom you've already met, Leandra RAMM. She is singing 3 songs from Cyril's song cycle, Transformations. These songs are available on Cyril's earlier album, A Bridge of Hope, on Amazon, iTunes Store, and other platforms. Enjoy this beautiful recording.
place and shimmers clear. Each tree's reflection straight and tall stands witness to the majesty of God, who has created all. In quiet places he draws near. Let any who would seek release withdraw into the wilderness and find in him a sense of peace. A sense of peace.
Don't mess with me. Don't crowd my space. You're in my way. You're in my face. I won't be you. I can't be me. I'm moving out. I'm breaking free. Have some respect. This is no stage. You're not in charge. I'm legal age. Don't preach at me. I'll just say no. My life is calling. Gotta go.
Thank you, Leandra. Next, Voices of Silicon Valley's project we would like to discuss is very important to our community. As many of you know, on December the 2nd, 2016, the Bay Area's arts community suffered a terrible loss. A tragic fire at the Ghost Ship Warehouse in Oakland took the lives of 36 artists and musicians. Voices of Silicon Valley performed a Ghost Ship memorial concert last year, honoring the memory of these artists by showing their work. Let's discuss this project with Ed Birnbaum, president of Vital Arts, based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and one of Voices of Silicon Valley's partners in this effort. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks, and it's a pleasure to be here. And the memorial concert last year was really memorable. It's almost 4 years now since my son, along with 35 other people, died in the Ghost Ship fire, which was a real shock to Diane and me, totally unexpected, coming out of the blue. And it took us quite a while to recover from it. And about a month after the fire, I was thinking, well, is there anything good that can come out of this terrible tragedy? And something that my son, Jonathan, who was 34 at the time, would have wanted to see done. And I knew that he was very concerned about his friends in the art world and the difficulty they had in finding places to live and survive. And in addition, the great difficulty in finding venues for musical events like the Ghost Ship. Soaring costs and rental costs and so on had driven a lot of artists to live, work, and perform in death traps like the Ghost Ship. The Ghost Ship was the worst of them. But without this kind of ferment of artistic ferment and creativity that is represented by these sort of small scale, not elaborate things, but it's where the young artists the people who are up and coming, who are creating new works of art, without their being able to live here, what makes the Bay Area what it is, a place of artistic and creative ferment, an incubator, not only for technology, but also for the arts, that'll be gone. And I knew that Jonathan would have loved to have had something done. So I had the idea, along with a couple of friends of mine, Beth J. and Tom Dolan. Beth was an attorney who'd worked with the California Supreme Court, and Tom was an architect who specialized in live workspaces. And the three of us co-founded Vital Arts. And the idea behind Vital Arts was to enable artists of all kinds, and we're not talking just about visual arts, but performing arts, dance, music, to ensure their access to safe, affordable places where they could work, live, and perform. So we started this organization, and it's been now almost 4 years since we've done it. We've graduated from being fiscally sponsored by other organizations to becoming our own nonprofit 501c3. And what we're trying to do, as I said, was basically to provide something that will help individual artists. Now, there are plenty of organizations and foundations that are helping arts organizations and, providing studio space, theaters, and so on, especially at the high end. But, if artists and performers can't afford to live here in the Bay Area, those become empty shells. And a lot of artists are basically, they're very individual. They don't really want to join organizations. So it's difficult to reach out to them. It's easier to reach out to an organization that has tax exempt status. So we focused on that. And what we're doing is we're working as sort of a catalyst to bring this idea to the attention of the larger community, and also to bring together different organizations so they can work together on this. And we realized that we ourselves don't have, the expertise to do a lot of this. So we've been forming partnerships with other organizations like Safer DIY Spaces. We're working now on doing something with the Northern California Community Land Trust, organizations and people who have the expertise so we can do things and put them together. We've assembled a really dynamic and wonderful, originally board of advisors, and now we have an actual board we're working with. And one of our first projects that we've done that we're quite proud of is what we call a safety loan fund, an opportunity fund. And the idea here is there is a warehouse, a large warehouse, an organization called Moxie, which is in Oakland. And they're the last remaining place where large-scale industrial art can be made. So they had a tragedy. They had their own fire in which some of their studios were burned down, and they had financial difficulties. So what we've done is we've raised money to give them low-interest loans as a bridge loan so they can get back on track. And also, because of this, they've been able to get the support of their landlord to help them with other things and give them advantages. And what's also wonderful about this is it's a great example of how the arts can benefit not only the cultural community, but also in this time of COVID pandemic, hospitals and others, because with the equipment they have there, what they've done is they've organized about 700 artists around the Bay Area focused on working in this warehouse to create PPE for hospitals and other places that need it. So it's the artists doing their part to help with COVID. And I'd just like to also say about my son, Jonathan, one of the things about the Bay Area is, as I say, it's a place of incubation. And my son, Jonathan, in a sense, was representative of this. He got a degree in film down at USC in Southern California. He was editing. He didn't find that all creative from his point of view. And somebody introduced him to the idea of making basically artwork that goes with because what's called being a video jockey or visual jockey. So what he started doing and found as a really great creative outlet for himself was to, with the computer, program various patterns, bringing in clips from movies and so on, that would be on a huge screen behind rock bands and behind DJs and so on, and performances. And he learned his craft and started it in small music events, like what happened at places that were much safer but small, like the Ghost Ship. And he went on from there to do things around the world. And his work reached millions of people, but it came out of this sort of small start here in the Bay Area. And this is, in a way, he's a model for, I think, what can be done. The fact that the arts here in the Bay Area can have an influence that goes way beyond the Bay Area. And if we can do something for young artists like my son, so that they continue to live and work and have, the advantage of mutual inspiration rather than dispersing to many other places and losing that contact with people who inspire them, they can come up with new forms of art and new ways of doing things. And in addition, if we can help them here in the Bay Area because of the attention the Bay Area gets, this would be a model for other places. And this is a problem not just for the Bay Area, but for places throughout, the country. An interesting statistic, according to the mayor of Oakland, with whom we've also worked on this project, is that Oakland, for example, has the highest number of artists per capita of any city in the country. Not more than New York, but per capita. And that's in part because there's all this, there are a lot of warehouses and so on that have been converted into live workspaces that unfortunately are not quite legal. So what we're working on is trying to help them to become legal places where they can live and work and not be in danger of being evicted, because there are pressures now of gentrification, and also the cannabis industry wants to basically move into a lot of these warehouses where artists are living, pay a lot more money and grow their plants there. So for one of the things that we did, for example, was the Oakland City Council passed an ordinance that if people are in live workspaces can't be converted into cannabis growing places. We brought that to the attention of the City Council in Berkeley, and hopefully they'll be working on instituting something similar here. So that's an example of an idea that can go beyond. Toward the beginning, there were hearings in Sacramento with the state Senate, and we came and testified about the effects of the Ghost Ship and what could be done, and how basically inspectors, instead of going into places and saying to them, okay, you're not up to code, you're out, red tagging them, how can they sort of change their culture and come in and mentor and help places so that they can, do what they need to do, put in sprinklers and so on, and make the places safe so people can continue to live there. We've lent our support to a bill that Nancy Skinner, the representative from this area, has put forward. Right now it's on hold because of COVID, but the idea is to have an ordinance that goes throughout the state of California that allows places to give landlords more time to bring their places up to code, as long as they can keep them reasonably safe, so that they would have a number of years to do the work that's needed. So there are a lot of things that can be done, and these are the kind of things we've been working on. And I hope it's a way of really honoring the memory of my son and the other 35 people who died there in the fire. And I should point out that not all the people who died in the fire were artists. There were also techies, and there was a lawyer who died there. And so this is something that's of importance for safety for the community in general, not just the artists. So we would love it if people looked at our website, which I think you have up there. It's www.vitalarts.org. You can see more what we're doing and who we are. And we would love your support for what we're doing. And also, I want to really thank Voices of Silicon Valley for their support and for hosting this memorial concert, which will bring, the tragedy of what happened to the attention of people and keep it alive as a way to continue to generate support for the creative community here in the Bay Area. So thanks again. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Ed, for this important work. I am so sorry for your loss, but you have really transformed it into a positive, wonderful, supportive organization, and I know we're all supportive of that here at Voices of Silicon Valley. And I just want to bring in Cyril. Wow, this concert was very powerful, and now we're taking it virtual.
Yes, it has to be virtual this year. So the Ghost Ship Memorial Concert that we are organizing has several goals. First of all, is to celebrate the artistic accomplishments of the artists who were in the Ghost Ship. As we began to look into this, we found out that they were incredible artists, like Jonathan, for instance. And we want everybody to see the incredible work that these artists created, because it's truly inspiring. So that's the first goal. The second goal, with our choral and vocal reflections, we want to just meditate on the sense of loss. The Ghost Ship Fire was incredibly not only tragic but traumatic experience for so many in Bay Area, for all the artists in Bay Area, and many of my friends, for instance, still need healing. So with those choral and vocal selections to provide a sense of healing to people through this event. And finally, what Ed was just talking about, to highlight the situation with the artists who need places to live and work. Even before the pandemic, this was important, and now this became an emergency. So very grateful for Vital Arts taking part in this effort, because we need to help artists. So those are the goals of our event, and this year we're presenting it virtually on 2nd of December.
Would you please help make this event happen? Your donation would go a long way to make this event a possibility. How is the progress with the fundraiser?
Let's look at the thermometer, Leandra.
Lee, we still need help to reach our goal of $4,000. Please text support VOSV to 77948. Again, that's support VOSV to 77948. Or go to our website, voices-sv.org, where you will see a link to our Fractured Atlas page and can make a tax-deductible donation.
Now it's my great honor to bring in the distinguished composer and multimedia performer, Pamela Z. Pamela, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Pamela, Voices of Silicon Valley, we're very happy to see you attending the Stimmung performances. Why did you come? Tell us.
Well, you know, when I first received the email posting about it, I was entirely unfamiliar with the group. And the event was taking place in Mountain View, so it was going to require me to make a 40-minute drive all the way to the South Bay. But I love this vocal work of Stockhausen's, and I had never had an opportunity to hear it performed live before. So, and you know, it was my understanding that before Voices of Silicon Valley's performances, that there had been no Bay Area performances of this work since, like, I don't know, 1974. Is that right?
I think 1980s. There was a Los Angeles group that did it in 1980s.
In 1980s.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this was, in a sense, a very important event. And I thought that the ensemble performed the work so beautifully and in a manner that to me seemed to be very true to the intentions of the composer. So I was so taken with this performance that I attended Voices of Silicon Valley's concert again when they performed it in San Francisco at the, I think I didn't know they were going to do that at the time that I went to Mountain View to see them, but they performed it again at the conservatory. Not too much later, I don't think. And then, so I was able to come and hear it again. And I was very thrilled to have a second opportunity to hear it. And now I'm really looking forward with just great anticipation to get my hands on and hear the recording that we're celebrating here.
That's fantastic. I mean, part of the reason it was so successful, Cyril, is because you got to work with Collegium Vocale Köln, the original Stockhausen group. How did that come to be?
How did that come to be? You know, this is a very interesting story. There is something magical about Stimmung. The way it happened for me is in 2012, and then in 2015, I went to Paris for the summer academy at IRCAM, Institute for Research in Acoustic and Electronic Music. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I got interested in spectral school of composition. work of Gérard Griset and Crista. And as I began reading about their work, I learned that Stockhausen, and particularly Stimmung, was very influential, that Griset heard Stockhausen presentation about Stimmung in Darmstadt. And then people saw Griset walking around the halls and singing overtones because he was so inspired. And I thought, that's very cool. And so that's how I got interested in Stimmung. And then I realized that's right, that this work that is so important for contemporary music has not been performed in Bay Area in 3 decades. And so that's how we became interested. And then I learned why, because it's so difficult and it requires so much time. So now when
I'm wondering, I mean, I've never had the privilege of performing a work like that in any of the choral organizations that I've ever performed with. So I'm extremely curious what it's like to prepare and perform this music. I know the work relies quite heavily on the production of vocal harmonics. Yes. And, you know, I'm Cyril, I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what was needed to prepare the singers for this technique. And, you know, were they already familiar with working this way, or did you have to kind of start from scratch in developing the technique with them?
Yeah, we pretty much had to start from scratch. You know, singing of overtones is not something that's taught very often. So for our singers, even many of them are, you know, advanced, and some of them sing opera. So there were different challenges. Some of them had to learn to sing with straight tone to make the overtones. Thankfully, if you look into the edition of the Paris version, there are some points there, how to make harmonics. There is a vowel chart there, and so you learn to sing the overtones by going through the vowels from U to I. You know, you learn to do that by going through the vowel chart. That took a while to do that before we could actually begin to sing, you know, the work. And then, of course, the whole play of one model singer, one lead singer in each section, passing the baton, so to speak, to others. So that's the other thing that Stimmung is known for, is the rhythmic polyphony that is created by, you know, this many layers. So there's 51 sections.
Yeah.
In each section, one singer is the lead singer who introduces the new model, while others are still staying on previous models. So there's this amazing polyphony, and by the end of a section, they're supposed to come in unison on everything. You know, so this takes a long time. Yeah.
So there must have just been night after night of rehearsing just to find that.
Yes, unfortunately, we could not. You know, what I read about Collegium Vocale Köln is that they spent, I believe, a week in isolation before the first performance.
Oh, you mean each time when they're preparing?
No, that I'm not sure. No, it was probably before the very first one. You know,
right,
and then because they were doing the work for years and years and years. And
Stimmung, being in just intonation, I'm curious if it was challenging for the ensemble to do the tuning, so to speak, necessary to produce those pitches accurately. Do you think it's the overtones themselves that guide the singers to tuning these pitches?
That's a big part, but you know, I'll tell you this. So the two performances, we had a different rehearsal venue the first time when we did it in 2017, and then the second time before the San Francisco Conservatory concert. And the first rehearsal venue, we were in a very live, resonant room, but at the same time, it wasn't very large. It was rather small, but resonant room. And there were moments when we began hearing those overtones. Those moments were magical. I mean, I just can't describe the feeling. So there were magical moments there in working on this piece. But I was curious, Pamela. Now, what does it mean to you? What does Stimmung mean to you in terms of its place in contemporary music, modern music?
Well, I mean, I just love the sound of the work, and I love all those textures. And I'm not sure there was much in the canon of Western classical music that employed these kind of techniques at all at the time that Stockhausen made this work. So, there's a lot of cultures in which we have this kind of singing. In like a lot of Asian cultures, some Northern European cultures, some North American indigenous people. But it was quite striking to find it in this music. And I also just, there's so much vocal music, like choral music, that is kind of tired in its approach, and just, or like reliant on really conventional ways of using Western, music chorus. And so I just find the work to be, just really, it just very, very, very individual.
Absolutely.
There's not a whole canon of work that sounds like that out there. So
And
that's
absolutely. And the fact that you just mentioned that, to me, that's exactly right. And I think that's why all these different cultures, religions that Stockhausen brings through using all these gods and goddesses from Native Americans to, a god from India or Africa, that exactly makes sense, because he's using the techniques, the vocal techniques that resonate with those cultures, and then he's actually bringing the religious traditions here.
And there's so much in Western classical music and choral music that's all about sort of Christian, Judeo-Christian, or mainly, Christian kind of foundation. And so I mean, my thought is, why not like expand to a view that's more inclusive of the world,
Yeah, exactly. And the idea, exactly, but that connection between technical side of it and philosophical side of it, it's truly amazing. And this philosophical side, bringing together so many religious traditions, is something that's very important to me. And I think it's someone told me, this is just written for Bay Area, for what we have here. People from all over the world, all religions. This is just perfect for us. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the earthly and also beyond earth, the metaphysical properties that Stockhausen was really interested in. He called it the winged vehicle, voyaging the cosmos and the divine.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm beginning to realize more how much this philosophical approach influenced me in my work. Because now I'm working on a piece that has music from India, and it has audio examples from Russian Znameny chant, and a Muslim prayer, and it's just, and then I realized that working on Stockhausen has influenced me on a deep level.
Well, I think also just sonically, it really celebrates the resonant. There's a for 10 years, I think, there's been a vocal contemporary music festival in New York called Resonant Bodies. And this piece is really about resonant bodies, and just, generating these unearthly sounds just because of the way that the bodies that are producing them resonate, So, I love that.
Right, and your attended performance in Mountain View, which is so far the only one that we were able to do outdoors. We'd like to do it again.
Yeah.
Because it was just so right. It felt
well, speaking of that, so the piece, it's intentionally amplified.
Right.
Which I think makes it, in a way, lends it more to being able to be performed outdoors, because you can't, when you're outdoors, you can't rely on the resonance of a particular room.
Right.
But when you can close mic voices, there's all kinds of little intimate things that happen that maybe wouldn't be so audible to the audience unless the space that they were in was such a perfect space that all of those little subtle things could be picked up and amplified by the resonance of the room itself. So I think that Stockhausen was really smart to include amplification as, you know, as a sort of a fundamental part of what performing that work involves.
Absolutely. Right. You cannot do it without microphones. It would not be right. Without microphones and speakers. Yeah. So.
When you rehearsed it, did you start with mics, or did you rehearse a lot without mics first?
At first, we rehearsed without mics. So so mics came later. But yeah, there is so much to learn in the piece, and you know, and after you practice the overtones, it's different models and all the mechanics and all the dynamics that happen. You know, as apparently the first version of Stimmung did not have that strict order of models.
Oh, is that right?
A model singer could just pass, you know, with a gesture, he could pass the baton to anyone. So, and then Collegio Vocale, they themselves created the Paris version that we recorded, where it's very strict how they spelled out the sequence of models. And they said, and if you read it at the edition of the piece, the Paris version with Universal, Wolfgang Fromm, he talks about that. He says how they came to that decision and why, how they spaced out the magic names, how they decided to do it. They themselves said that to do a free version became impractical. It wasn't right. So
tell me about recording this. What was how did that differ, if at all, from doing a live performance? Was it just performed straight through, but just in a studio, or was there something special about how you went about recording it?
Actually, this recording on Orpheus label that we're releasing is live from the live performance.
Oh, which one? From the conservatory, or?
From the conservatory, yes.
Ah, well, the sound was good in that room.
It was.
So
it was small enough.
Yeah.
But you know, we're looking at other possibilities, hopefully to do it again, to record it again. Everybody in our group wants to do it again. It's just incredible experience. So.
Well,
thank you so much, Pamela. It's been wonderful too.
Thank you, Carol. This is an amazing discussion. I want it to go on all night. We're so glad to have both of you. You're both amazing. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me to join you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pamela and Cyril. Now is the moment you were waiting for. Let's raise the glass together.
Cheers.
Cheers. We greatly appreciate you attending our gala. Please remember to support Voices of Silicon Valley by texting support VOSV to 77948, or go to our website, voices-sv.org, where you will see a link to our Fractured Atlas page and can make a tax-deductible donation.
Let's take a look at that thermometer one last time, Leandra. Folks, the success of the important work Voices of Silicon Valley is doing depends on you. So everybody make a donation. Remember, this album we've been discussing today, Voices of Our Time, has already appeared on multiple digital platforms, iTunes, Amazon, and Spotify, so you can listen and purchase it on these platforms. Visit our website, voices-sv.org, for more information and links to these digital platforms. Also, please tune in to our YouTube channel or Facebook page on December the 2nd at 6 p.m. Pacific Time for the virtual Ghost Ship concert. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.
Thank you.